Something very serious is going on in Africa right now and nobody is talking about it. It's not poverty, neither is it corruption. No, a coup d'etat, though we've had a lot of this recently. You see, Africa has the youngest population in the world and Japan has one of the oldest populations in the world. So you would expect health problems that are associated with older people to be common in Japan than in Africa. But then the opposite is true now. So in this video, we're going to see why it's the opposite. We're also going to see why Nigeria is an exception and thus why it's green on this map. We are going to also see how all this is related to corn and why this might just be a reason why Nigeria is more populated than any other country in Africa. In fact, Nigeria has the same population, that is about 220 million people, as 15 neighboring countries around Nigeria combined. Now, in the past, many scientists, many geographers and all that, philosophers have tried to give their take on why Nigeria is the most populated country in Africa and have actually failed to an extent. Now, some scientists have given reasons like it's because there are early marriages in Nigeria. That's why Nigeria's population is higher than other African countries. But then there are early marriages in nearly every African country. Some other scientists talk about rivers.
Nigeria, despite its relatively smaller geographic size compared to the combined expanse of the other 15 countries listed, boasts a population that rivals their collective count. This demographic phenomenon can be attributed to access to more rivers with an abundance of fresh water than most other African countries.
Nigeria has about 200 rivers, which is very impressive. But then this is still short because the neighboring country, Cameroon, for example, has about 2,100 rivers. So why it might actually contribute to Nigeria's population, it isn't the key to why Nigeria has a very high population compared to the rest of Africa. Another real problem is that Africans themselves don't tell their stories, making it very difficult for the world to actually understand the African stories. But today, Africans are able to tell their stories and connect the dots. So today, I'm going to give you an answer to all those questions that you are raising in your head. My name is Asangwed Luis and you're watching Africa Today. Africa's corn addiction has reached and surpassed alarming levels and nobody is complaining about it. And what people are saying instead is that we should continue consuming lots of corn.
Well, if we give them better seeds, if we provide more fertilizer, if we educate them about the best practices, then we'll start to see this very dramatic rise.
In the US, less than 2% of corn produced is consumed directly by humans. The rest goes for animal feed, biofuel, and some other stuff. Meanwhile, in Africa, over 80% of corn produced is consumed directly by humans. Recent scientific studies shows that high increase in corn consumption leads to higher risk of hypertension.
So my name is Stephanie Seneff, and I'm a senior research scientist at MIT. And a lot of people have been talking about fructose, maybe not so good, high fructose corn syrup. We're beginning to be aware that high fructose corn syrup is not something healthy. Fructose is 10 times as bad as glucose at glycating protein.
Now, what makes this even worse is that a new research from the Journal of American Heart Association shows that African Americans are more prone to hypertension than whites.
In our family. New research in the Journal of the American Heart Association shows that 75% of African American men and women are likely to develop high blood pressure by age 55, compared to just 55% of white men and 40% of white women.
Blood pressure is very complex. Part of it relates to the genetic makeup. A part of it relates to diet.
Imagine a situation where we are more prone to heart diseases caused by a particular grain. So not only are we more prone to hypertension disease, but then we go as far as consuming grains that cause hypertension more than anyone else. It's a dilemma. Imagine that we consume a lot of corn in Cameroon, and I'm in Cameroon and I'm telling you this. Now, there are certain regions in Cameroon that consume a lot more corn than other regions. Now, just imagine a situation where a black man tells another black man that you are too black. Just imagine, like me, for example, I'm very black. I tell another person that you are too black. It means that person is like darkness. So imagine that I'm telling you that we consume a lot of corn in Cameroon, and I'm telling you that there are certain regions that consume a lot more corn than other regions. Now imagine how these guys consume corn. It is at another level. So how serious is this? If you meet a man from Seoul in the northwest region, from Cameroon, for example, he will literally tell you that if he eats a day and he doesn't eat corn fufu, it means he hasn't eaten. You can imagine, it means that somebody can actually eat corn 7 times a week and press repeat. So basically what actually happens is that most people, they eat corn as pap in the morning. In the afternoon, they eat it as corn fufu. In the evening, they still eat corn fufu, and they accompany it with beer. And beer, let's remember that beer is also made of corn. Now, you might be thinking that this is because of poverty or whatever. No, it has nothing to do with poverty. It's actually something more powerful that is very, very powerful, like a religion. It is actually culture.
Don't mind, all right. So I noticed you enjoying this delicacy so much. So may I know what brought you here or why you love this delicacy? Because I saw how much you enjoyed it.
We know that we grew up like into this life, so it's like part of me. I can't do that. Understand?
All right.
Yeah. And I'm from the Northwest, and Northwest, especially from Boku, these are traditional dishes.
It's a cultural thing, just like a religion, that a typical man that comes from Seoul, for example, in Cameroon, likes to eat fufu, not because he is poor. Now, there are restaurants in Yaoundé, for example, where I stay, where a plate of fufu corn is about 3,000 francs. That's about $6. That's not cheap in Cameroon, where the average plate is about $1. It means that people consume this not because they are poor, but because there is something else that they are after. That sense of belonging, that food of their motherland, that tradition that have been passed from one generation to the other. Now, how do we get to this addiction? How did Africa get to this addiction of corn? Corn first arrived in Africa about 500 years ago. That's about 1580. Now, before corn came to Africa, Africans had their own staple food, which involved things like cassava, yams, sorghum, and millet. Now, Africans were actually using these things like just staple food. But then, when corn was introduced in Africa, corn came in as a new commodity that people never saw, people were not really used to. And so it was like, it gave that fever of, the way you buy a new iPhone, how it looks like. So corn came in like a new iPhone. And so different tribes started producing food from corn in different ways. A particular tribe might choose to grind corn before actually producing food out of it. Another tribe might choose to soak the corn before grinding, and all this gave slight changes. And there was like some kind of competition between tribes who prepares better with corn than the others. And so that's how Africans had unique dishes with corn from different parts of Africa. But most of them are called fufu. In Niger, for example, the corn that is produced, almost everything goes for human consumption, and all their meals are based around corn. That's why you see with Niger, the map is redder than what you find in other parts of Africa. Look at Niger and look at the problem we're talking about. We're talking about hypertension. It's too red in Niger because of the very high consumption of corn. We consume a lot of corn. It's high time we talk about this map. This map actually represents hypertension cases in the world, and you see very well that Africa is very red. And now if you look at countries like Niger, which is not very diverse, because one other good thing about corn is that corn can be grown nearly everywhere, in dry places, in wet places. Corn thrives. It thrives. So in places where the diversity is very low, you also find that this map is very, very red, like in Niger, for example. So how does Nigeria stand out? We've been talking about Cameroon, Niger, and the others. How does Nigeria actually stand out? Why is Nigeria green on that map? And why is Nigeria having so much population? Why? Nigeria is actually green on the map because when corn was introduced in Africa, Nigeria did not leave its staple foods totally like the rest of other African countries who embraced corn and let go nearly everything. Now, if you've been watching Nigerian films, you will always hear about pounded yams. Nigerians consume a lot of yams, and now this alone made it have a lot of diverse food. Now, when you have diverse food, you have less problems. And when we talk about yams, yam has very good properties. It actually slows the release of sugar into the bloodstream, reducing sugar spikes. Yam also has properties that are connected to the heart. Surprisingly, I told you that as Africans, genetically, we have a higher probability of having hypertension than most other races. And so, if Nigerians have been consuming yams, they have been taking lots of medication without even knowing it. This yam has actually prevented them from consuming a lot of corn. In Nigeria, more yams is produced than corn. That is surprisingly. Just Google the top 10 staple foods in Nigeria, you will find out that corn is not among. And if you Google the top 10 staple foods in Cameroon, you will find corn. If you Google the top 10 staple foods in Niger, you will find corn, and so on and so on. So everything is actually interconnected, and corn became so popular because it is easy to plant. It could grow literally everywhere. But one good thing about Nigeria is that they didn't accept gun. Now you're going to be wondering now, what has all this got to do with the population change? Yeah, this has got a lot to do with the population change. I have to say this seriously because superstition is something that actually been part of Africa up to a certain level. At first, when somebody passes away, people didn't actually believe that somebody would just pass away like that. When somebody passed away, especially if it is somebody that they love, they always relate it to something. I remember back in the days when my dad travels to our village and comes back and tells me that this person passed away. I'll ask them, what happened? Why did that person pass away? He will tell me that, well, they say in the village that this man is responsible, that man is responsible. So we grew up like thinking that, but what's happening? So somebody cannot go away like that because of just natural causes. You hear that somebody just hit the leg on a small stone, fell down and died, and somebody will say that, but how can somebody just go like that? It's not possible. Somebody cannot just sleep and don't get up from sleep, and you think that is normal. Somebody cannot just fall on the ground while bathing, and you think that is normal. But these are all normal things. These are all attributed to, the heart diseases, high blood pressure and all that. So these are the symptoms that we see today that at first it wasn't known. In the past, people never really associated, I don't want to call the name because strike, I don't want that name to appear so many times in my video, So, but that's how it was happening. People were not really associating this, and that's what have been happening basically. I'm talking about superstition. I have a younger brother. When I was still in university, that's about 18 years ago, he had a very good friend. As young as he was in his early 20s, and nobody could actually believe that this guy was succeeding from natural causes. The guy was succeeding. He had a business. He sold petrol. He sold fuel at the time, and people were not like, in Africa, people were not like believing that a young guy of 20, 21 can make millions selling fuel. There should be something behind it. He belongs to a club. When I say a club, people, you understand what I mean. So people didn't really want to associate that with hard work and all that. They wanted to associate it with something spiritual. And so when he was sick, my younger brother called me and told me that his friend is sick. By then I was in university. I think I was in level 2 or something like that. I told him that, hey, what is he sick of? Have people gone to the hospital? He told me that they went to the hospital and they told him that he had malaria. Malaria is very common in Africa. So if you start treatment of malaria, the symptoms can go away within a day or 2 maximum. But then if you actually ignore it, it might go to the advanced stage of malaria. And that advanced stage, many people don't really know much about the advanced stages of malaria, since many people usually treat it early enough. So this guy actually neglected his and actually went to the advanced stage of malaria. If you are not from Africa, you understand what I mean. Just like you have a cold and treat the cold. That's how malaria is common. And so I told him, but if you've gone to the hospital and found out if it is malaria or not, he told me that he went to the hospital and found that it says malaria. He said, this is not how malaria is. This thing is very serious. It can't be malaria. So from the symptoms, I knew, I was so solid on it. I knew that that's malaria, because the guy was talking in tongues. I don't really know how to say tongues. He was saying things that I cannot link up. It's just like saying one thing and linking it to some other thing without actually making sense. Malaria is the kind of disease that when you have it to an extent, first of all, the mechanism of malaria parasite is that it actually, let's consider this stuff to be a cell, though it's not as round as this. When malaria parasite gets into your body, it tries to break your cell open, the red blood cells, which actually carry oxygen from your lungs to different parts of your body so that they can function well. Oxygen is needed to produce energy wherever the oxygen is arriving at. So when you have malaria break open red blood cells so that the oxygen doesn't reach the target area. So when this continues over time and it actually affects a large volume of your blood, it will actually reduce the quantity of blood that goes to your brain. And when it reduces the quantity of blood that goes to your brain, what happens is that your brain cells start dying. And when your brain cells start dying, it means that you will not be reasoning normally. It means that you will be having any idea that you have in your mind, you just try to join it and you say it out like you are discussing, but you discuss things that don't make sense, if you understand what I mean. So that's how that guy was talking, and I insisted I knew that it was malaria, because at that time I was doing biology at university and we were doing just that topic. We're working on malaria, like the details of malaria. So I told him that this thing is malaria, you should go back to the hospital. He said the parents have already made up their mind. They love their son so much. This is jealousy. Somebody must be bewitching their son. And actually they went to a witch doctor, or how should I call it. And when they reached there to the witch doctor like gave them what they wanted. Yes, this thing, he belongs to a club. It's like this. He mystified everything like 6-fold. And he made about 4 or 5 days. The guy, I don't want to call the name, he went away. He disappeared from earth. He went. So it ended up, and even up to today, if you tell the father that it's because of malaria, the father will never accept. He knows that it's this person, that person. So it's superstition. I mean, superstitious beliefs, you know. And back in the days, that's what was happening. That's what was happening. That's what was actually happening. So I want to just let us know that in Africa, we have been losing many people to hypertension, and we didn't even know that it is hypertension. And it is due to the way we eat, it's due to our feeding, it's due to the food that we eat, that we actually find ourselves in this situation. One of the reasons why corn became so popular in Africa is that corn could grow everywhere. Secondly, coming closer to modern times, government sponsored many projects dealing with corn. They sponsored it, they gave free seeds and all that. So the people like welcome corn to be the best thing that happened to them. It was like, you know, if the government is supporting something, the government has all the qualified staff, it has all the doctors, it has all the professors and everything. And so people took it to be the, I don't know, the golden bullets, you know. So people welcome this crop like, this is the holy grail, you know. So nobody could suspect that the overconsumption of corn could be a problem one day because of superstitious belief. Nobody thought that people died for natural causes. Thank God today that we actually know the causes of these problems. We can actually identify these problems. But then people don't know that there is a ticking time bomb. This map, I'm very sure that less than 1% of the African population have ever seen this map. Talk less of the fact that we are consuming what is going to lead us straight to high blood pressure. It's enshrined in our tradition. Now, nobody's talking about this. That's why I'm making this video, because nobody's talking about this. I want to give a voice to this problem. I want us to look at this problem. I want to give a voice to this problem so that things can move on well. You know, Africa today is a business channel, but then you cannot do business if you don't have a good health. So we need to work on this. I know many people will be saying down there that, Luis, hey, we're talking about tradition. This thing is very serious. This is our tradition. This is our traditional values. No, but then if you look around the world, weird traditions have been changed over and over. In one part in Asia, punishments were given to people when somebody did something and they wanted to punish that person. They will bring an elephant to step on you. And you know, when an elephant steps on you, that's all. You're finished. That was just punishment. It was just punishment for maybe a little thing that you did, and it was also part of their culture. But that was weird and have been eliminated. But then it also means that we can also eliminate in Africa certain weird traditions. I know we have been doing that. But then, you know, many people think that since corn is full, it tastes good, it is not much of a problem. We have to remember that that elephant putting his leg on the chest of somebody is equal to us consuming lots of corn, because both of them have the same results. And even worse, the corn is even worse, because before you leave the planet, you are going to pay heavy bills and put every other person in your family in trouble. So it's high time we start looking at some of these dishes and making the right decision. All those guys who like to eat fufu, please, you have to think about it. You have to think about it. See where you can make a change. See where you can mix up. I'm not saying corn is a bad thing. Please don't get me wrong. Corn is a very, very nutritious grain. But then we need to use it wisely. You've seen the statistics. We are more prone to things like, you know, and whatever we do just leads us to those terrible things. So, my dear family, we've come to the end of this video. Just want to say thank you. And I want to say a big thank you to all our members who have been supporting us. This video, if it's going out to you there, is thanks to you watching.